The Rough Drafts podcast is sponsored by Unicorn.com, the world's premier esports betting site. Bet on your favorite games like CSGO, Dota 2, and League of Legends, and earn Unicoins through successful bets, or use Unicorn's exclusive Connect program, where you can earn Unicoins just by playing some of your favorite games. Use your earnings to enter Unicorn's raffles for exciting prizes like Logitech peripherals or CSGO skins. So join Chase and Walter and prove who really is the esports gambling expert. Unicorn.com. Log on today. Hello, Internet! This is Walter, Ceades, Fedczuk here, bringing you a very special edition of the Rough Drafts podcast. See, Chase, this is a special edition of the Rough Drafts podcast because we don't get to do these podcasts very often. It's our IEM Katowice League of Legends World Championship Preview Guest the Lines Extravaganza podcast because we actually are going to show up to an IEM event metaphorically, as opposed to the three teams that decided it wasn't worth their time and wanted to use Donald Trump's Muslim travel ban to be their excuse for why they didn't want to go when, they are not from any of those countries listed in that travel ban. And another person not listed in any of those countries from that travel ban, but might not want to travel anymore. My good friend Chase RedShirtKing Wassenar. You know, Chase, one day we have to tell the people about your exciting trip back from Turkey.
Yeah,
that was a very fun story.
I have to say, it's amazing that Turkey's not on that list. I appreciate it because it means that, my questioning was only 45 minutes rather than the crazy amount of time it could have been. I'll say this for Cloud9. It's a shame that they didn't have the same care when they decided to have their Overwatch team go play over in Apex. That apparently totally fine, despite also having foreign players on that roster. But, the League of Legends team, clearly that would be an issue. The 1 week, really quick, kind of visa that you just need to travel, that would not be a thing that they could do. But if you want to live over in Korea for a couple months to do a tournament, no concerns there whatsoever. I find that funny. I find it interesting. I find it captivating. And by the way, 4 teams chose not to go here, Walter. Don't forget that SKT had a seed and just said, nah, I'm not even going to pretend that we care about this tournament. It's a tournament. It's the ESL that we're used to when it comes to League of Legends, which is everyone bringing their second or third team squads. And, Europe cares because it's in Katowice and everyone else pretends that they do. And I'm here to pretend that I care today. That's my job as a podcaster. It's my job as a League of Legends analyst. And it's my role as a fan that loves seeing international competition. I will talk myself into this tournament because I talk myself into every League of Legends tournament. And then I will watch it and remember that IEM is pointless and we'll go on our merry way because this is the circle of IEM.
See, I'm of Polish descent. And I remember a story I heard on another show where former Evil Genius StarCraft player In Control was talking about the differences between visiting Poland and Stockholm for StarCraft events. And you go into Katowice, you go into Stockholm, and from the airport, it's like 45 minutes into Stockholm from the airport, and it's beautiful. It's exactly what you expect of Sweden. Green countryside, lakes, blonde hair, blue-eyed people singing and dancing, in the fields, drinking sparkling water, etc., etc. It's like, and you come into Katowice, and it's that same, 45-minute drive, and it's just gray and stone buildings, and it's just depressing, and you just want to get in your hotel so you can look at something nice. And, I can't blame teams for not wanting to go to Poland. It's not exactly, a top 25 travel destination for most people. And sorry to all the Polish fans of our show. I don't want to offend you, but
shout out to Warsaw. I love the historic district of the city. You have good cities. Katowice is an interesting choice for this tournament. It is an interesting choice they've made in the past.
And as if Cloud9's hypothetical Trump won't let our Korean players back into the country, blah 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 thing, it gets better because EDG, the Chinese representative, had some statement where they're like, oh yeah, our visas got declined, and the Polish embassy went onto the Chinese Weibo, I'm probably butchering it, but it's basically Chinese Reddit, and said, no, they didn't give us all the paperwork. And then EDG had to issue another statement, which was basically blaming the fact that during their time to acquire their visas, it was Chinese New Year and the entire country is basically shut down. So it just made it really difficult, and the players had to go back to their provinces to apply for them and all this other jazz. So it's just really inconvenient. I honestly feel bad for Carmack, who's the front-facing kind of head of ESL, IEM production type stuff. I kind of feel bad for him because he's got to feel like that X at that X when you're told, oh, it's not you, it's me. You aren't told the real reason, and then they're off dating someone else 2 days later, and you're like, but why couldn't you just tell me the truth? Why couldn't you just tell me you wanted to see other people? I kind of feel bad for him. But at the same time, IEM just doesn't have the same prestige anymore. This isn't a tournament anymore that matters as much as in the off season where there's no other league, and I'm like, yeah, it's League of Legends, I want to watch it, and it's mediocre, terrible League of Legends, and it matters then because there's nothing else on. But Chase, I gotta hand it to you. This tournament, IEM doesn't matter.
Yeah, look, it's as we once saw Radiohead say, you do it to yourself. We've had these problems with IEM repeatedly in the past. They have these weird delays and technical issues whenever they cover League of Legends. And I know that it's a League of Legends specific problem because I've seen plenty of ESL matches. The Counter-Strike Global Offensive tournaments are always really well done.
They go off without a hitch.
Absolutely. And repeatedly so. So I'm not going to say that the ESL does shoddy work. What I am going to say is it seems incredibly suspicious that the League of Legends broadcasts have had issues after issues after issues every year with pretty sizable delays, and every other game gets off fine. Almost as if we understand that ESL isn't all that invested in these tournaments and know that League of Legends brings a natural viewership, so they don't necessarily need to try as hard. And let's face it, teams aren't as invested in this tournament anyway, so you're not going to get too many people up in arms about the whole thing. You could just feel the corners being cut. Every time you hear another team steps down, or when the inevitable delay happens sometime between Game 2 and Game 3 of one of the series on day one. I guarantee it's going to happen. We're going to have that weird delay that goes on for an hour and a half and no one explains why. And I'm tired of trying to talk myself into this tournament. I'm tired of saying, well, there are these significant flaws, but it's okay because it's still IEM. It's still an international event. We deserve better quality international events. But, and this is something I really want to just say very clearly and firmly here, the reason that we give EDG and Cloud9, and to a lesser extent Samsung and SKT, crap for not showing up, is because international tournaments matter. In the sense that this is the only time you get outside of MSI and Worlds to play against teams from other regions, learn their metas, learn the ins and outs and what they've taken from their region into this tournament, so you can take it back and maybe use those adjustments to make yourself better. And Cloud9 and EDG in particular are two teams you would point to and say they could have benefited from playing against the best teams in Europe. They could have benefited from playing some Korean teams who at the very least understand the Korean system, even if they're not as good as other teams at executing it. This is a huge missed opportunity in that sense. And that's why I'm very disappointed in teams that choose not to show up from regions that constantly clamor for more international competition. You can't say in one breath, we need more international tournaments, we need more of these kinds of events, and then on the other say, but I don't want to go. That's not an acceptable way of doing it. And maybe Cloud9, made their declaration too late for another North American team to be asked. I find a lot of reasons to be skeptical of that. Hong Kong Esports certainly didn't have a hard time getting a visa from Europe, and they're based out of Hong Kong. Don't know how that's simpler than North
Sources, behind-the-scenes sources have actually told me that multiple NA teams were approached, and no one wanted to go.
That's what I'm hearing as well. And people will say, like, oh, Carmack, shout out to Carmack. He's never bitter. He's never publicly expressed any disappointment or anything. He's always got one step forward. He's like, well, it's hard to get visas and it's last minute and all of that stuff. And shout out to Carmack for covering for these teams. But we can see through you guys. It's not hard. If Hong Kong Esports can do it with like a week worth of notice, I know for a fact you guys could have probably figured it out. I've gotten visas before. I know the process. It can be done. You guys chose not to do it, and that's your prerogative. Hopefully, Cloud9, recover from their terrible week last week. They could use the practice, clearly, because they went 0-2. But here we go.
Well, here we go. There is a tournament this weekend.
Yeah,
it's happening whether we want to complain about production or the commentators or the prestige of it or anything. There is a tournament this weekend. And like any degenerate gambler, we're interested in this tournament because I think there might be some money to be had at this tournament, my dear friend. So we're going to go through reverse order of the outrights. So we're going to start with the least likely team to win, and we're going to go all the way up to the most likely team to win. And I think our viewers are going to be interested in this because while there's a favorite to win, it's not a clear favorite. It's not a very dominating favorite. The top six teams in this out of the 8 are all within 300 points of each other. So it's a pretty close field, all things considered. But the team least likely to win, according to our good friends over at unicorn.com, M19. Now, M19 acquired Albus Luna's spot in the LCL and acquired the entire roster. It's basically the same roster that was at Worlds with the change in the AD carry role. Their new AD carry is now Vincent Vega, and the team is 4th in the LCL, as opposed to the last couple years where this roster has been a dominant force just across the board. Now, I was the one who had to watch these, and I don't see a huge difference, in all honesty, from the team that we saw at Worlds. I think the meta has sort of bothered them. I don't think PvP Statos, the jungler, really sits well in a Rengar, Kha'Zix kind of centric meta. He's an okay Graves player, but that's not really his bread and butter. He's a much better Rek'Sai player, much better Elise player, and those are just not efficient champions in the current meta. And I think the other big point is that even though it is sort of a mage damage support position that Licorice sort of excels at. Remember, everyone was like, oh man, he plays Brand, like be scared of his Brand, be scared of this. That takes away one of the advantages that the team did have, in that they did always have this pocket. Okay, well, we can pull all this damage out from Licorice that's going to be unexpected. And now that everyone's doing that, you can waste a ban on the Brand, but there's other champions that do the same thing better, and most people are just banning Zyra and Malzahar anyways, or were. Now they've been nerfed a bit, so on patch 7.2 and 7.3, they're a little bit more prevalent to get through the pick ban phase. But I just think the other teams in the LCL are a little bit better, and I look at Albus Nox, I look at M19, and they're plus 410. Or, sorry, 4,010. Or 4,100.
Okay.
4,100. Not great.
No, I mean, and it shouldn't be. I'll give M19 this for people that don't watch the LCL, which is going to be 99.9% of our audience. M19 has beaten the teams that are towards the top of the standings. They took a win off of Invictus, which is currently the best team in the LCL. They also beat Virtus Pro, which is currently tied for that first place in the LCL. So they can rise to the occasion against good teams. They've also dropped games to the 2 worst teams in the region. So is that them not trying so hard when they're taking on what they believe to be a lesser opponent? Is that them just being a team that rises to the occasion when the pressure's on? I'm not sure. I think from Worlds, certainly we saw a team that at least has composure. We could expect that they're not going to be, kind of deer in the headlights like a lot of wildcard teams would be. But I'm not at all confident from what I'm hearing or what I've, the little bit that I've looked through. Yeah. I think you're on the nose, and I think the casinos are correct to do that. I think if the M19 somehow wins this, a lot of things have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to shirk from the spotlight, and sort of the neutered talent levels of the other teams that are coming, especially the two Korean teams, which we'll get to in a moment, I think helps them. But I still think they're really kind of long shots to really make noise and be a success and potentially compete for the top prize. That brings us to our 7th most likely team to win the whole tournament. And they were our last team added. They are the team that is replacing EDG. It's Hong Kong Esports, better known as the team that Ole played on before he was on Immortals. So Chase, what do I need to know about Hong Kong Esports, and are they a threat to win this? Is there a chance that they, come out and surprise us? Are they better than plus 4,000 odds?
I mean, I find it interesting that, Hong Kong Esports are known for, this is where Ollie came from, and this is the organization that's currently in a very long and complicated lawsuit with Toys. If people remember the former Taipei Assassins World Championship winning mid laner. That's been a whole thing. But when you just look at the team, Walter, I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar to any team that you might know in North America. So they've got a solo laner who's very good and knows how to, really win team fights and even games on their own. They've got another solo laner who tries to do kind of weird picks from time to time, but doesn't necessarily know how to put it all together consistently. You've got a jungler who just seems lost as far as how to path properly. You have a bot lane that is usually outplayed in a way that comes back to haunt them. Walter, what team am I describing?
You're describing most of North America.
I'm describing, pick. I mean, specifically, I think this is like some sort of weird hybrid between Dignitas and Immortals, and that's not good. That's not a good team. It's look, I love Gear. The Gear is the mid laner. When they actually put him in instead of trying to make Cuckoo work, Gear is awesome. I love his laning phase. I love the way he places his Orianna ults. He's been amazing on Orianna. He has proven that he can be this team fight leader. And to the credit of Hong Kong Esports, they do like to fight a lot, and they do have moments where you'll look and you'll see like, man, they have, they're winning in kills right now, despite the fact that they're behind in gold, because they can take, decent engages. Now, they're not winning by a lot in kills, and they are usually down significantly in gold because they have a bot lane that can get bullied out very easily. Nestia, the supports champion pool, is absolutely terrible for this meta. He played Alistar, non-ironically, within the last 2 weeks. I should also point out that their pick and ban is among the worst I've ever seen. In their last series, which was against the Flash Wolves, who we'll talk about later, Flash Wolves were able to get Camille as a last pick on red side. Literally last picked on red side because Hong Kong Esports, despite losing to it in game 1, decided it was neither pick nor ban worthy. And by the way, the pick that Hong Kong Esports opted into, the top laner that they picked beforehand when Camille was on the table, Gragas. It was Gragas. You really needed to lock in that Gragas because this is not a good League of Legends team. This is not a team that can win this tournament. And they're 0-6 in the last 2 weeks against the 3 best teams in Taiwan. Yay! So glad that we get to see some Taiwan representation that will inevitably cause some more jokes if Flash Wolves don't pull it off. So, what do you think? Ringing endorsement, Walter? You in?
That is about as LMS and Taiwan. Yep, that sounds like Taiwan to me. Yep, that sounds about right. And this is the fourth best team in Taiwan?
This is the 5th best team in Taiwan.
5th best team in Taiwan. Can I guess 4? Is it Machi?
4 is 5. Actually, sorry, they're the 6th best team in Taiwan.
Oh.
Machi is 5th. The 4th is Fireball, who I will not claim to know much about other than Wind is on there, and I love Wind. I think that he's a jungler that does good things, but I haven't watched enough of their games. I watched Flash Wolves, I've seen AHQ and J Team, and I watched Hong Kong Esports for this tournament. And believe me when I say, there is no other reason to watch Hong Kong Esports. They cannot hold their own against the best teams in this league. And if they can't hold their own against the best of Taiwan, I'm not seeing them do it against the best in Europe. That's for sure. You're
at least implying that they have some sort of like star in gear that, could potentially blossom into someone.
Yeah, sure, if they start him, which hasn't happened for half of the games.
Well, but at least they have one of those, even if they're sitting on the bench. As we move to the 6th most likely team to win the IEM World Championship, it's Kongdu Monster.
Ooh.
And Kongdu, they're Korean. They're a solid Korean team. They're they're solid, but that's the only thing about them. They're solid. They remind me of the Denver Nuggets in terms of they don't have a star. There is no star player on this team. They're all solid. They're all really good, like, role players. They're probably, could be the 3rd best player on pretty much any team in Korea. The problem is, who do they go to when they're actually trying to win a game? They're the 10th team in Korea at this moment. And it's because they don't have someone that can just leap and can pull that trigger and can be the I'm going to win this game. They have moments within the games where you'll see a player really, go out of their way and make a play and have something that's very aggressive and proactive, and you want to see them snowball it. But when you're looking for that snap decision, that snap moment for someone to make a play to finally, cut the head off the snake and actually win the game, no one on this team is really that player. This feels a lot to me like the old school Zenit rosters, where they have some really good, strong, young talent, and 1 or 2 of these players is going to be a really good player on another team 2 splits from now. But just these 5 players together don't make a winning combination, don't make an effective threat to, the top 6 teams in Korea. There's always this argument about where would a Western team place if they come over to Korea, or where would, a mid to bottom tier Korean team place over in North America. And that really, it's kind of a moot point because you don't know how play styles will change. You don't know exactly how the Korean play style would match up against 9 North American teams week in and week out. You don't know how the talent level of a Korean player would match, going week in and week out against the 9 other teams that would be in North American LCS at that point. This is a team that I think would do fine in North America. I think they would sit, just on the outside of the playoffs, that 6, 7, 8 range, just because they're really strong team fighters. And I think that's something that's kind of lacking in North America, especially in the middle tier teams. But it's that sort of proactive lunge for that victory. When are you going to make that play that's going to finally snap your trap shut and you're going to win a game? And there's just no one on this team that does it.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, like for people that followed along for IEM Gyeonggi, this was a Kongdu Monster team that, despite all of those flaws, still managed to get 2nd in that tournament. Now, the teams they had to beat along the way were Immortals and Giants Gaming, and a single game against Dark Passage. So, are they the same quality of team as some of the teams they're going to be playing here? Maybe not. I don't think that, I think Unicorns of Love and G2 are both significantly better. I think Flash Wolves is better than the teams that they ended up playing at IEM Gyeonggi. But they do seem to... They did enough in that tournament to seal that 2nd place. And I wonder... I do wonder how the Korean game is going to match up. I think that it's safe to have them in the 6th spot. I think that that's a totally fair line from the casinos. I'm just very curious as to how this actually comes together when the games are played out.
Kongdu are at plus 550.
Okay.
Plus 550. So there's some value there, but I'm still iffy because I don't see that killer instinct in them. Moving on, at plus 500 the other Korean team, the ROX Tigers. And folks, this is not your 2016 ROX Tigers. All those players are gone. This is ROX Tigers by way of Africa, where they basically took all of Africa's roster. They added Shy and they added Key from Ever and kind of shook it all up together and said, okay, now we have a League of Legends team. Go. And there have been some moments out of some of these players where they do have that sort of gut killer instinct to go for it. I think Mickey could absolutely turn into a star in the right circumstances. Unfortunately, he hasn't landed in those right circumstances yet, but he absolutely, I think, could be a stud. Linderong and Swang, I think, are both solid top-end junglers, and the team just feels like Africa from last year, where if Mickey goes off, they could beat anyone, but there's such a disconnect between him and the rest of the players on the team in terms of how they want to play. The rest of the players on the team, I think, excel in team fight, where Mickey, I think, excels in laning and is very poor in team fights. I think his positioning is very, very poor when it comes to damage output. I feel like he allows tanks on the other team to get in front of his abilities a lot, especially when he's playing Rise and you're trying to shotgun someone down, you're trying to just chain your spells together, and he really just allows the big, beefy frontliners to get in front of him, and he's not very effective with positioning around them or not knowing when exactly to just say, screw it, let me just run through the tank, burn him down, and then I can get onto the back line. He seems really over-reliant on the Rise currently. Like, that seems to be his really strong comfort pick. And he's good at it. He's really good in laning phase. He really understands the combinations when he's dueling someone 1v1. But when you get into that team fight situation, it's kind of rough. And then the top lane is really a bounce back and forth between Shy and Linderong. And Shy. Chase, you're the former CJ fan.
Yes, I like Shy.
I felt like Shy was added here just because they didn't have any name brand players anymore, and they were in this, ROX was sort of in this push to become a globally recognized brand, especially in the United States. They had, they had Smeb, they had Peanut, they had all these guys that were really well loved in the States, and then they all disappeared, and they went, well, we still had this marketing plan, let's keep doing it, but let's bring in someone that everyone knows. Let's bring in Shy. But he's had some moments of brilliance. I was watching highlights of him playing Renekton, and Shy is one of the original Renekton gods. He was a fantastic Renekton back in Season 2 and Season 3. But the difference between him and Linderong is kind of subtle. Like, there's not a huge difference between the two of them, and I think that ROX are stunting Linderong's growth by dropping Shy in here for a series or a game here and there. This doesn't really make sense to me to be, sort of a timeshare. Did CJ really do this that much with Shy last split? Was there a lot of time sharing on their part? Is it worth it?
Look, if CJ could find a way to mismanage a talent, they found a way. I honestly, whatever you could say about ROX Tigers switching back and forth, I guarantee you CJ Etis was switching back and forth more and at worse times, and just running everything into the ground, which I remember every time I watched Ghost do great things on BBQ Oliver's, and I remember that CJ Etis didn't even bother to play him because the Ocelot god in their head told them not to, I suppose. But yeah, no, I like Shy quite a bit. I think that he certainly in the games that I've seen has done quite well. I think right now, if you look at the stats, he has the second highest KD out of the team. Only Sanghyun has been more consistent in the games that have been played. This is a team that outside of Mickey, it does feel like the team fights can work. And Mickey makes enough solo plays where you almost excuse it, the way that he can sometimes screw up that side of things. I don't know if they're a cohesive whole enough right now to take on the best that Europe has to offer, but they're going to be on what I believe is the weaker side of the bracket where they
Absolutely.
have. The path is just so much easier for them to get through as long as they can hold their own against H2K. M19 and Hong Kong esports are eminently beatable. So don't be surprised if this ROX Tigers team is playing in the semifinals or even the finals, depending on what that matchup looks like. It's things have played out well for them with these changes. So.
Yeah, I think the groups are definitely doable. They probably will end up in the semifinals. All they have to do is beat M19 and Hong Kong Esports, and then they'll probably be, the two. I think they'll be the 2 seed. I think H2K is better than them, and we'll get to them in a moment. They'll probably be the 2 seed and be against the 1 seed from Group B, and it'll be an interesting story. I haven't seen anything out of them that makes me feel like they should have. I know people are going to be like, oh, Korean team isn't the favorite to win this? This is ridiculous. The Koreans are always great. Guys, this tournament feels to me like the time TSM won. It just feels like the best talent didn't show up. Maybe Rox has sort of a World Elite kind of vibe, a Team WE kind of vibe where they're a little scrappy and they get a surprising win here in the semifinals and maybe make it to the finals. But I think the WE team was a little bit more talented and had a little bit more cohesion than this Rox Tigers team does at plus 500. Chase, the pride of the LMS, sits at plus 450.
Okay.
The Flash Wolves.
Okay. Interesting.
The pride of the LMS.
They're 4th. They're behind all 3 of these EU teams. Just to be clear. Okay.
Yes, they are.
I'm sure that's in no way influenced by the fact that most people don't watch the LMS and the
Probably.
Unicorns Western audience is much more likely to know what's going on in Europe.
Probably.
I'm gonna say it I'm gonna say the same thing I said heading into Worlds. This is a very good team. If they play like a very good team, that's the real question mark. They certainly at Worlds showed that they had the ability to beat anybody, and they had the ability to beat themselves regardless of how dominant they were previously.
Oakland.
Yeah, and IEM Oakland is not a great side of them turning things around. Again, another tournament in which everything looked to be going their way, and they had an eminently winnable series and completely fell apart. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of, every time I watch this team, I watch them do good, play well and play, and have this fun team to follow, because it is a fun team. Karza is awesome. He is an aggressive jungler who maybe isn't, the same kind of first blood king that we think of when we think of Jankos, but he's still getting in 50% of his games right now, which is more than enough if you're trying to kickstart a team that traditionally is a lot better in the mid to late game than every other team in the region. So if you're winning the early game because you have, Karza making plays, you have Maple who does enough in the laning phase and can roam. He loves to roam. You have MMD who is enough in the top lane. He does enough to be a top laner. And, Betty is the AD carry right now. That's the one big change. And Betty, in the last 3 series, 21, 5, and 31 for a 10.4 KDA. Sword Art, 4, 4, and 56. This bot lane's been dominant. If they play like that team, it's going to be super fun to watch. If they don't, well, then I don't know what to tell you. They're going to be the same team that disappoints me time and time again. And honestly, I get why people are leaning away from it at the casinos. They've been burned before, and I don't have a counter argument to that. But I really do think that this team, if they play up to that potential, they know how to win fights. They have that kind of Unicorns of Love-esque identity of, if we can get the value trade every time, this will go well for us. And they don't do it as cleanly as, or as quickly, I should say, as Unicorns of Love do. Their average game time is about 34.9. They have more of a mid to late game, as I said, than most of the LMS. But this is a team that hasn't dropped a map to anyone not named AHQ so far this year. This is a team that when they play, anyone like a Hong Kong Esports, they take care of business incredibly cleanly and efficiently. There are enough teams here that they should figure this out. And then I remember they're on the same side of the bracket as Unicorns of Love, G2, and Kongdu, and I just get nervous because I don't think the team that I've watched is necessarily going to be the team that you all will get to watch. So fingers crossed. I think that at plus 450, did you say?
Yes, plus 450.
That's real value there. I think this team wins this tournament more than that. but they have to be the team that they look like when they're playing at their best, and they have to be a team that can take advantage of positioning mistakes and, win some of these team fights, because they're not going to snowball the early game hard enough against teams like UL or G2 to win that way. So cautiously optimistic. Can you feel the lack of confidence coming?
I hear international choke artists. That's I don't want to be that mean. Like, this isn't a it's an LMS team. I just mean they got to the quarterfinals 2 years ago now. That was when them and AHQ got there.
2015 was great. I thought that they did find an MSI. They were a solid team at MSI.
But it's a downward trajectory. Like, they played very well at Worlds in 2015, and then 2015, and then it's been MSI was pretty good, but then it's been a downward trajectory on all their international appearances since then. Yeah. So it's hard for me to trust them, just like it's hard for us to trust G2. Like, it's hard for us to trust G2 at that point. And I think it's very apt that the two of them are playing at the very first match against each other.
Oh my God, the memes will be so clear from day one how this is gonna go. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I'm very nervous. Very nervous.
We'll get to G2 in a moment. We got a couple more teams to get to. H2K Gaming is on the easier side of the bracket. They're at plus 400. I think this is the best value.
Yes.
Out of anyone. Plus 400, a super easy bracket in which they have Hong Kong Esports, M19, and Rox. What am I missing? What am I missing here? Are they the one seed to come out of Group A? Are we confident in that? Okay.
I mean, I'm as confident as I'm ever going to be in a Western team doing this at an international event. This H2K team is a really fun team to watch. They're a team that I would say is potentially, if not the best team fighting team here, the second best team fighting team here. Mm-hmm. They understand how to, get the flanks that they need with Otoamne. I think those have improved in the last couple of weeks. Right. Nuclear is awesome. I'm so glad I was wrong about him. He just cleans up these fights so well, and his laning phase seems to be getting better every week. And Jankos is still, he's not necessarily as good at First Bloods as he's been in the past, but he certainly knows how to snowball an early game advantage. And even if he's not getting First Blood, he has a definitive impact on how the early game plays out. The thing about H2K, and this could be a positive or a negative, depending on how the rest of the teams kind of scout and prepare for this tournament, is that H2K are a team that very clearly goes into they have one way to win, but they're really good at that one thing rule. The one thing they know how to do is good early game thanks to Jankos, have the advantage going into the team fights, take objectives off of successful team fights, and win the game. It's team fight, team fight, team fight. That's what they know how to do. If you try to split push against them, if you separate them from, and don't give them those kind of engages, if you ward well and prevent any sort of the flanks that Jankos can get early, you can absolutely shut H2K down. Mm-hmm. They have not done a good job of proving that they know how to play well from behind. They haven't really had to, but it still is the case that they haven't shown that they can do it yet. And that makes me nervous. I'm always nervous when teams don't have that secondary win condition, because if someone can find a way to mess that up in draft or can do some weird things to throw you off, how do you get back to the path? What do you do when you're forced to adjust on the fly? I'm not quite sure what that answer is, but I think the fact that they're in Group A, they're going to have more time to figure it out than they could have ever hoped for. Certainly, they're in a spot where they should be the favorites. They should have plenty of time to see these different strategies come up against them. And I have a feeling they're going to be incredibly effective against the teams that they're going to be running into, probably up until the finals. The path is clear.
I can dig it. I think I agree. The bot lane for H2K has been the surprise, I think, of the season for me in Europe. They've been very impressive. They seem to mesh very well together, and then they inserted themselves into the team as these sort of clean-up team fighters I think is very efficient for the sort of play style H2K is going for, with Ottawamne and Fabivin being the primary sort of disruptors of team fights. It feels like they're a better version of themselves, and that team got to the semifinals of Worlds last year. I think this is a very easy group for them to get through. I think setting themselves up as the 1 seed. The other side is that whoever they're going to be playing in the semifinals is going to be arguably a very good team as well, whether it's Flash Wolves, whether it's G2, whether it's H2K, whether it's Unicorns of Love or Kongdu Monsters. Like, they're going to be playing against a very strong team as well. So being in that sort of weaker group might end up coming back to bite them if they do end up in a very tough semifinals matchup, as opposed to what could be a very easy one coming out of Group B as the 1 seed when you're looking at potentially ROX or M19 or Hong Kong Esports. That being said, one of the teams H2K might be facing in the semifinals is our second favorite team, and probably our personal favorite coming out of Europe, the Unicorns of Love. And they are at plus 350. Now, Chase, you brought up in pre-call to me that there is a thought going around that the Unicorns of Love might have had that sort of weird series with G2 because they are saving something for IEM. This also comes from our interview with Jos Malat, the CEO and co-owner of the team, basically saying that they really want to win IEM, that it's very important for them to win IEM. This is a tournament for them. They want to be successful in anything that they compete in. So, Chase, do you buy this, and do you think it's the right move for the Unicorns?
No, I don't buy it. I think that G2 threw them off when it came to the pick and ban phase. I think that there's good and bad news. The bad news is that I definitely do think that the series was legitimate. It was a mess of a game, too. I have no idea what was going on there. They both were like, hey, no, I really think that you should win the game. Well, no, you already won game 1, G2. We might as well just hand it to you. Well, are you sure, Unicorns of Love, we could do a third game? And they're like, nah, go ahead. That was bad. That was a bad game for both of those teams. Game 1 was just G2 doing G2 things, and Unicorns of Love didn't find a way to stop it. But this is the problem that Unicorns of Love, that we predicted they'd have going into this. They are a team that likes to play with this accelerated pace. And what I find interesting about this is it means that they're going to be very different. I'm going to feel very differently about them depending on the matchup. For instance, against G2, I still believe that if they can improve their pick and ban and play more like game 2 than game 1, except, cleaner rather than complete clown fiesta, I think they could beat G2. I totally believe that is in play in a best-of-3 series.
I would agree.
However, I'm more worried about them against Flash Wolves than I originally think I would be. Because Flash Wolves are a team that has no problem playing the fight-all-the-time value game.
That's
fair.
That's
basically their home turf. Taiwan and North America both are very similar in the kill counts are a lot higher than you feel they should be if teams played the game cleanly. Which, for Unicorns of Love, that's because they're making distinct value trades. To put this in perspective, Flash Wolves in the games that have been tracked by Oracle's Elixir, which is not all of them, so take this with a grain of salt, they right now have a 2.04 kills per death, which is absolutely bonkers.
That's
it
nuts.
just says so much about the drop off when you play teams that are below the third best team in Taiwan right now. But to be fair, they did the same thing against G Team. They're just really good at these kinds of skirmishes. So Unicorns of Love are going to have to, that's going to be two forces of very similar styles coming head to head. I think Unicorns of Love are certainly have the potential to be the better team. I love what Xerxes been doing. I think Exile has proven everything that we thought about him, as far as just the faith that he could really take the leap forward. I think that has been totally vindicated. Vizicachi is absolutely a monster in the top lane on the right champion, and Hill is saying even in a meta where he's not completely comfortable, he finds ways to impact the fights for his team consistently. I love this Unicorns of Love team. I just think that putting them in Group B, they have some very interesting matchups. Flash Wolves are not going to be the same kind of matchup that they're used to, and G2 found a way to slow them down. I want to see how they adjust, and I think that's going to be, to me, the most interesting part of this tournament.
I would definitely agree. I mean, Group B is a cornucopia of interesting matchups and what ifs and theories and proving yourself. Yeah, Unicorns. I have been pleasantly surprised by their season thus far. I think the G2 series was one of those aberrations where past Walter and Chase would have been like, "Oh, Sheepy, what are you doing? You're so terrible at this. Why are you okay?" I just think every once in a while a coach is going to have one of those kind of brain fart moments where it just doesn't go as expected and you kind of screwed things up. I think that the players didn't really play within their compositions very well, and especially once they fell behind. It's the Unicorns' love style. They don't care. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to keep fighting. And unless you get a really, really lucky team fight or a really good team fight or get a couple of catches, it's really hard to play that kind of style and come back from a deficit. I think that's going to be a primary focus of theirs, especially in this tournament when they may eat up with Flash Wolves or a G2, to really focus on their early game and making sure that they don't fall behind, or if they do, it's not such an insurmountable lead that they can win that one team fight and just be right back into it. Mm-hmm. And speaking of G2 are the favorites to win the tournament at plus 250.
Yes.
It seems almost too obvious to pick G2 to win this tournament, just because of how dominant they've been in Europe, and really, to me, the only team they truly have to beat is Flash Wolves. I think that's sort of what it comes down to, is, are G2 better than Flash Wolves? And that question kind of determines who wins the entire tournament. I think they're going to play against each other at least twice.
Very possible.
And tell me I'm wrong.
I won't. I'll put it this way: if the barrier to winning the championship is Flash Wolves, then we might as well crown G2 now. I think that the bigger problem they're going to have is themselves at international events, because that's what we're coming into right now, right? G2 has gone to international events twice. They didn't necessarily demonstrate that they had prepared the way that they should at those events. They didn't necessarily demonstrate that they could bring out the best version of themselves when it came down to how they were playing both on an individual and as a team level. They didn't necessarily demonstrate, one of the things that I've mentioned before, but I think is worth re-examining every time we do have an international event. Trick seems to get away sometimes with some maybe questionable vision choice and gigs, because he understands the patterns that all of these European teams have, because he scrim them all the time, and he's seen the film, and he's so good at breaking down teams that way. And now he's having to prepare for teams from all these different regions on a pretty shortened schedule, because it's not like G2 were one of the first teams invited to this whole thing. Mm-hmm. So this could be a concern. There certainly are reasons to question whether or not this is all going to play out the way that that G2 want it to. But I think it will. I think that this is about time for G2 to show that the team that they are in Europe is actually the team that they are. This is a expect that I have really enjoyed watching this year. I really do believe that he has grown significantly, especially in his usage of globals and making team plays across the map. I think that Perks has been very solid. I think he's still Perks, but I think that the times in which he's cost the team have been very minimal comparatively. I think Trick is still this brilliant shot caller. Sven still just never dies in fights, just ever. He has 18 deaths in 17 games, which is absurd, especially because Mithy's kind of been off comparatively, and it just doesn't matter to Sven. He just keeps racking up all those crazy stats no matter what he does. And even Mithy, for everything that he has, that been struggling with right now, he still has a good sense of how to roam and how to set up the rest of his teammates. Even with all those deaths, he still has a 3.1 KDA. So that's, not as good as it should be, not as good as the Mithy that we're used to, but it's still Mithy. The floor is established as still being pretty good. So I'm excited for G2. I want to believe that they will take care of business. I want to believe that they will show up at this tournament and play like the team we have been watching for the last 5 weeks. I say I want to believe because I'm just not. There's just some nagging thing down in the pit of my stomach, in the bottom of my heart, that just says, what if they don't, though? Because I don't know how G2, if they lose this tournament, convince anybody to back them in international events going forward. It will never be easier to win an international tournament than this one. They've got to get it done. There are no excuses left on the table. If they don't win this tournament, we have severe questions we have to ask about Europe as a region.
See, this, like I said, this feels like the IEM World Championship, the TSM one. And yes. G2 is fitting the TSM mold about as closely as you can currently. Yes. They haven't won. They need to prove that they aren't just choke artists on the international stage. And I think there's a reason G2 are the favorite. But I think there are 4 teams. The top 4 teams, you can argue me into any one of those 4 winning. I would probably say that Flash Wolves is more likely to win than H2K. I think those odds are a little faulty. So, whatever. But if you pick any one of these 4 teams to win, I wouldn't fault you for it. I think there's value in all 4 of these teams possibly winning. And Chase, I think there's some value in some of these round 1 games. Now, if you've never watched an IEM event before, they do this kind of interesting group stage where there are 4 teams in each group, and they have a winner's bracket, and the 4 teams each play against one other team, and it's a best of 1, and whoever wins moves on in the winner's bracket, and it's double elimination. So 2 best of 1 losses, and you are out of the tournament in this group stage. 2 best of 1 wins, and you move on into the semifinals. The 1 seed plays against the 2 seed from the other group, and vice versa. So in Group A, our very first match of the IEM World Championship in Katowice, Poland, Rocks Tigers versus M19. Chase, very quickly, who wins it? Why? What is the line?
Rocks Tigers win because of the 2 teams. One of them competes in the most competitive region of the world. One is struggling to hold on in Russia. I have Rocks Tigers minus 600.
Yeah, you are not high enough. I probably would have guessed Rocks Tigers minus 500 in that region. It's Rocks Tigers minus 909.
Fair. I don't have any problem with that.
No love for M19, but if M19 won this, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't shock me.
I mean, it would be great revenge for what happened at Worlds, right? They win once against Rocks, and then they had a chance, and they threw it away against G2, funnily enough. There are a lot of revenge games potentially for M19.
Yeah,
but I'm not so convinced. Let's keep going.
Yes, next game, H2K versus Hong Kong Esports. Who wins? Why? What do you think the odd is?
H2K wins because H2K is a good team that has a clear way to win, and Hong Kong Esports like to fight a lot. And they're good at fighting, but they're not good at any other part of the game. So I'm going to say H2K minus 400.
Well, I would have said H2K minus 700. I thought there would have been a larger gap because I think H2K is way better than Rocks Tigers. You would have gotten this. This is H2K minus 435. Yeah. That'll set up round 2 matchups for us that we expect Rocks Tigers versus H2K. I think H2K wins that series.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Absolutely.
M19 versus Hong Kong Esports. I expect Hong Kong Esports to be the favorite here. I expect M19 to win.
I think it's in play. I think it'll be interesting to see how M19 would handle the constant aggression that Hong Kong Esports throw out. Mm-hmm. Because it is constant. Yes. For everything I could say about Maple Snow not quite showing up, and both, Gemini and the other jungler who is so incredible, I've completely forgotten his name. It's like a 1.7 KDA. Starts with something, it's got a couple L's in there. It doesn't matter. This is a team that, Wulala, that's the guy. They fight a lot, and they're gonna constantly be throwing, these fights, people just at M19 over and over again and say, can you deal with this? Can you deal with this? Can you deal with this? I don't know that M19 can. I think that that strategy does not get teams very far. Certainly if you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick, that is not a really intense strategy. But we'll see. M19 certainly could pull it off, but I'd need to see some more illiquid magic than what I've been seeing so far from what I've, just looking over the stats. Not
Totally
convinced.
fair. Now we move to Group B, and Group B is where I see the actual value in the group stage because it is so close among these 4 teams. Very first game, Kongdu Monsters versus the Unicorns of Love. Who wins, why, and what's the line?
Yeah, by the way, when you say game, I just want to point out to listeners, these Group A and Group B, the first round, is literally a game. We don't get to best of 3 series until round 2.
Round 2. Round 2 elimination matches. No.
Any game after the first 2, after the first 4 series, I think, because the first round in each group is best of 1, and then round 2 semifinals are best of 3, finals are best of 5s.
Gotcha. So, okay. Yeah.
Maybe the losers bracket round 1 will probably also be a single game.
Is best of 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Walter and I are on the record as to how we feel about best of 1s. So I'll just say I wish that this was adjusted more for the fact that it would be a best of 3, because a best of 3, I'd have a lot of faith in Unicorns of Love. I think Unicorns of Love are the better team. I think that because it's a best of 1, I'm going to keep it to minus 275.
Oh, you have Unicorns of Love as the favorite.
Unicorns of Love, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you silly man. Kongdu Monsters are the obvious favorite at 143. Minus 143, Kongdu Monsters. Yep. Smart money bet for round 1 of IEM World Championships. Unicorns of Love over Kongdu Monsters. Write this in blood. They're at plus 110. Take it. Take your money, people.
I have so many questions. Starting with, does anyone watch Kongdu Monsters betting on this? What in the world?
Korea. That's the answer. Korea. It's a Korean team. Unicorn is overvaluing them against the Unicorns of Love. Take your free money. Thank us later. Moving on.
Somewhere Romaine is just shedding the single manliest tear, just one down the street. Oh my God.
He's totally working out his Bill Goldberg "You're next" shout. Yeah, definitely. The last game of round 1 in Group B is G2 versus Flash Wolves. I think that this is the eventual grand finals. Chase, who wins their round 1 matchup in this best of 1 series? Why, and what is the line?
See, I'm so nervous about Flash Wolves. I think that G2 are the better team straight up. Mm-hmm. I think that G2 have shown much more patience in how they play. They've shown a good understanding of the macro game in a way that Flash Wolves, I think, are still lacking a bit. They have more than the rest of Taiwan, obviously, but like you look at their week 1 series against AHQ and the just cluster F that was, and I think that G2 should be able to keep things calm and collected. I think G2 minus 180, it's going to be a very interesting game.
You are a little high. I would have actually put this at even odds. I would have said that this was probably going to be even if I hadn't seen the outrights beforehand. It is G2 minus 139. Puts Flash Wolves at plus 105. I would stay away from this game, but I think this is the eventual grand finals. And if it is, take whoever lost this match in the grand finals. That's my prediction.
I like that. I like that a lot. I do think it's very hard to beat a team twice. I think that that's something we've seen historically. And in this case, it could be very hard to beat a team 3 times, depending on how the rest of the bracket goes, depending on what you think of Unicorns of Love.
They wouldn't play each other 3 times. It'd only be 2 because they'd eliminate each other.
You're absolutely right. My apologies. This is me not doing my maths properly.
But same thing. If they play against each other in the losers bracket, take whoever lost the first matchup.
Yeah. It's certainly going to be... I'm excited to see how it works out. I think that both of these teams playing at their best make for one heck of a game/series if they ever get a chance to meet up again. If either one of these teams shows the international worries that we've seen in the past, let's just remember, of all the teams that are at this tournament, only Unicorns of Love can claim an IEM buff. This is a Unicorns of Love team that has played better at these kinds of events on bigger stages. That is what the Unicorns of Love love to do. They thrive on this. And if you don't believe that Xerxes and Vizichachi and Hill is saying, you don't believe they care about IEM, just remember when Yost came on the pod a couple weeks ago, he was talking about how much they wanted to win IEM. And that was with plenty of LCS left to go before that happened.
Yes, it was.
They've been thinking about this for a while. This really does matter to UOL in a way that it doesn't seem to matter to any other team, just because of how big this is for expanding their fan base and reaching out to the kinds of events that they want to go to. This should be a very interesting tournament. I'm not willing to say that it's going to be we spent 10 minutes at the beginning of this podcast complaining about things for a reason, but when you just focus on the teams and the games at hand, there's plenty to get excited for.
I would agree. I think that the final weekend, the Saturday and Sunday games, are going to be pretty interesting to watch. And this has been a pretty interesting podcast, Chase. We got to talk about a couple regions we never talk about in the LMS and the LCL, the CIS region and the Taiwanese region. That's always pretty cool. It's nice to kind of step out of the comfort zone and watch some different teams and realize that no matter what, we're all kind of screwed because Korea is just that much better. So, if you want to talk about Taiwan or the LCL with myself or Chase, you can follow us on social media. I am at Ceades_LOL. Chase, where can the good folks at home find you?
You can find me at RedShirtKing. You could also find the podcast at Rough Drafts Pod. We tried to give away some copies of Octodad this week, and no one wanted to respond and claim them. So I don't know. I feel like you guys should be following, if for no other reason than we do our live tweeting over there, and the interacting back and forth with you guys is something that we really enjoy. Shout out to everyone who does show up on a weekly basis to talk to us. Alexander Yang, Death Star LOL on Twitter, has been awesome. I love talking to at IEM Aaron Jameson, who's talked to us a lot on Twitter. I really will always give you guys shout outs. And also shout out once again, lcspredict.com, Steve Kaffmeyer's advanced stats website. That's where I do my power rankings every week. Obviously the LCS is off this week, but do go check that site out. It's awesome. I've enjoyed writing for it, and I think you guys will love kind of examining things, and you can kind of see for yourself how you should feel about G2, Unicorns of Love, and H2K. So
smart gamblers use all the tools available to them. And folks, I gambled on Longzhou versus Africa last week and used LCS Predict and told me take Longzhou as the value bet. I did it, and I won. Steve Kaffmeyer never leads me wrong. And we'll never lead you down the wrong path. Come back on Thursday, where we're going to bring back the nepotism edition of the Rough Drafts podcast. We're going to have my brother, Alexander BM Navas Fedczuk, on to talk some Hearthstone. They made some changes, and hopefully I'll go back to playing ranked because I hate Shaman. And hopefully they nerf Shaman. So come back on Thursday. Yeah, Chase, I know. But until then, goodbye, Internet. Hey there, Ceades here. Thanks for checking out the podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, consider supporting us at www.patreon.com/roughdraftspod. For just $1 a month, you can join your fellow listeners in our patron-only Discord channel and help keep the content coming, or join our VIP club, where $1 a show or $8 a month gets you first priority on all patron content, like our patron-only Q&As. And check us out on all of our social media, Twitter at Rough Drafts Pod, Facebook.com/Rough Drafts Pod, SoundCloud.com/Esports Rough Drafts, as well as on iTunes and YouTube by just searching for the Rough Drafts Podcast. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, Internet.